Happy Friday, Real Texas Radio Podcast listeners. I am Bronin, your host. Thank you for joining me today. If this is your first time tuning into the Real Texas Radio Podcast, 1,000 welcomes. If you haven't already, please make sure like, subscribe, follow, download the Real Texas Radio Podcast from wherever you stream. And you can also follow the Real Texas Radio Podcast on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. I've got a big show today, per usual. Finally, Amber Gibbons, the candidate for district attorney here in Dallas County, she has produced her campaign finance report. Better late than never. Do you think that she mailed it in from her address that she listed as her mailing address as the UPS store on Cedar Springs in Oak Lawn? Or wherever her alleged residence is in Dallas County. Not sure about that. I also want to talk about Ken Paxton and James Tallarico. I've got a few more comments on the U.S. Senate race here in Texas. Do you think there is going to be a debate? Do you think that Ken Paxton will respond positively to James Tallarico's charge for 3 debates? I think we're going to be lucky to settle for 1. I also want to talk about briefly the Fauci hearing. Bear with me. I'm going to talk about it at the top of the show. You know what? It's one of the reasons why I started the Real Texas Radio Podcast. One of the key reasons was because of the COVID hoax, farce, nonsense, scam. So I've got a few comments I'd like to share about that. Bear with me. And then at the end of the show, I'm going to be talking about the special meeting that has been called for today by the Dallas County Commissioners. They have an item that they really want to vote on the last Friday of July, when they typically don't even meet in July, and they typically meet on Tuesdays because no government agency or elected official hosts meetings in the summer unless it's really important, and it happens to be really important. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, now, you're listening to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Bronin, just a fed-up taxpayer bringing you all of your Texas, local, and national news. Very briefly, I just want to talk about the Fauci Senate hearing from earlier this week. I know it was 2 days ago at this point, which is a lifetime in the speed of the news cycle these days. But a lot of the cuts that you've probably seen, if you didn't watch the whole hearing, I had it on in the background. I was doing other things. You probably saw the Republican senators who eviscerated Fauci and humiliated him. Josh Hawley from Missouri, I think he probably had the best performance. Boy, is he ready for prime time. He is great in public. He does a fantastic job at these hearings. Moreno, I think he's a senator from Ohio. He was good too. He had a bit of a potty mouth. I was kind of surprised. But the cut that I want to focus on, there were 2 Democrat senators, including Maggie Hassan, who is so bad. She's one of the senators from New Hampshire. But they used the hearing as an opportunity to talk about what a great loss to the United States. All of the scientists, quote unquote, and the experts who decided to leave government because of the atmosphere of course, the Trump administration. So here she is on her pulpit. Maggie Hassan.
America is losing researchers and scientists to other countries.
Good.
Because researchers and scientists, highly trained, highly qualified, invested in often by...
highly trained researchers. You know, could these be some of the researchers and scientists and experts who told us that in order to keep the country safe during the COVID hoax, farce, nonsense scam, that we were going to keep open McDonald's and Burger King and Popeyes, and extend the hours of operation of the liquor stores, but we were going to close the gyms, and we were going to fill in the skateboard park with sand, and we were going to tie up the basketball nets in the park, and we were going to arrest people who wanted to go for a swim out in the ocean with absolutely nobody else around them. And any form of gathering or exercise outside was severely restricted or outright banned. But fast food restaurants and liquor, they were expanded in terms of availability to the public. And Uber Eats, and encouraged to get the food and the liquor delivered. Liquor delivery. The state of Massachusetts allowed takeout liquor, takeout drinks from restaurants. The state of Massachusetts, the same state that banned happy hour 40 years ago, or close enough, 35 years ago. You cannot have happy hour in the state of Massachusetts. But during the COVID hoax, farce, nonsense scam, the state of science and colleges and universities like Harvard and MIT, Boston College, Boston University, they decided that for your safety, we're going to allow liquor takeout, and we're going to close the gyms. So all of these decisions, they were influenced by these researchers, the Fauci types. These are the people behind. So you know what? If that's what that group of people has to offer, get rid of them. Bye. We don't miss you. Keep firing. What was the CDC worth? I think we saw absolutely nothing during the COVID hoax, farce, nonsense scam. They offered absolutely nothing to the public. I'll spend a few more minutes on this, actually, because I do have some other comments. The Democrats, they love to refer to government jobs and bureaucrats as service, with all their paid holidays, generous vacation, steady cost of living adjustment raises every year, all kinds of stipends, goodies, and freebies. Fauci, we all know he enriched himself very much, particularly as a result of COVID. And he had celebrities fawning over him. And I think he's worth like $12 million. I think he already had one of the top, if not the top, salaries in the whole government because he was there for 50 years. Thank you for your service, Dr. Fauci. St. Anthony Fauci, your service, your service. You know what? I really don't appreciate when government workers are, when they are classified as performing service. If you're in the military, yes. If you're a police officer, yes. Okay, if you're potentially risking your life, if you're potentially going to be shot by some psychopath or in a foreign land, I will count that as service. I think we can all count that as service. But when you are a fat cat bureaucrat who has just got his head at the trough constantly, and you get a book deal out of your service, and you get a limo, and you get private security, then you're not in service. Service is volunteerism. You don't get paid for service, aside from, like I mentioned, military and police, defending other people physically, putting your life at risk. Other than that, it's volunteerism. That's what service is. So this is Senator Moreno from Ohio. I've got the cut here. I'm going to go ahead and play it.
It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people.
You know what? Americans, they've had enough time with these politicians, these COVID era politicians, the vast majority of whom remain in office today. So the voters, I mean, most of the public gleefully went along with the whole hoax for a Trump check, for a Biden check, for basically you got to stay at home, you got an extended vacation, you were getting unemployment benefits, you got a phony baloney PPP loan, you pretended like you were heading off to Europe to fight the Nazis or something like that. Back in the 1940s, you pretended like you were at war. And a comment that I really don't agree with is, millions of people died as a result of COVID. Millions of people died, and they blame Fauci, blame the Democrats on their policies for these alleged excess deaths. We can never forget that you look at the death certificate, and almost everybody, I think it was like over 95% of the death certificates, if COVID was listed as a cause of death, there were 3, 4, 5, 6 other illnesses or maladies that were also credited for the death. And, especially with older people, it can get really convoluted. If somebody is just sick and in bed for weeks or months or longer, in the end, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what was the straw that broke the camel's back. I can tell you this, though, if you put COVID on the death certificate, we cannot forget, the hospital was able to bilk the taxpayers for another, $10,000, $20,000 per COVID-related death. So there was huge financial incentive to get COVID on the death certificate. If you got hit by a bus, they were going to put COVID on the death certificate. If you got knocked down and rolled over by a steamroller, or you were a gunshot victim, if they could get COVID on there, I'm sure they jammed a stick up your corpse to find out if there was any COVID that they could stick on the death certificate. So it's just so maddening. Oh, we don't want to hear about it. Oh, we're litigating something from 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I didn't want to hear about it for the 2.5 years every day. I didn't find any comfort with neighbors or acquaintances or my employer asking me about my vaccination status. I didn't like that. I didn't like being harassed when I was traveling. I had a trip planned, I had to cancel it, and I never got a refund for that. Oh, you can use the ticket next year. Oh, wait, no, you can't, because we're going to play the COVID hoax farce nonsense scam game for another 2.5 years, for as long as we can, for as long as the PPP loans are flowing, thanks to my accountant and my team of lawyers, because I'm fabulously wealthy and I have those people on retainer, and they're doing everything they can to bilk the taxpayers. I'm going to wrap it up there, but I just wanted to speak on COVID before we get into the next topic. Let's talk briefly about Amber Givens. Again, she is the Democrat candidate to be the next district attorney here in Dallas County. She's running unopposed. There is no Republican challenger. And as of July 15th of 2026, the Dallas County clerk did not have on file, required by law, her campaign finance report, her semi-annual report. And the Dallas Morning News contacted Amber Givens and I think her campaign manager after a week. It was still not made available. And I think now she has allegedly produced some photo evidence that she had the semi-annual report postmarked by July 15th, or some of it, partial postmark. And, this is a woman who is going to be deciding what crimes get prosecuted in Dallas County. And meanwhile, she's already failing to comply with the law on filing her semi-annual campaign finance report. And so it did finally come out a few days ago. And it looks like she hauled in $78,000. Not much. John Crusoe, I think he was much better funded, just being the incumbent, having more cash on hand. So it really is an upset victory. And, we've heard no tough questions asked of Amber Given. She's not taking questions. She's going to cruise into election, most likely in November. And nobody knows who she is for the most part. Nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention. Just like nobody knows who John Crusoe is. Most people in Dallas County couldn't tell you who the county attorney is. And so it will go for Amber Gibbons. And it's I'm really cynical about the whole situation. And I still haven't gotten my hands on a copy of the campaign contributions. I've just seen the summary. Apparently her biggest donors are Dallas County lawyers. I think a number of them maxed out donations at like $5,000. I wanted to see if George Soros contributed to Amber Given's campaign. So I'm going to be digging and looking for that. I'll keep you updated. But if you're a Dallas County voter, I'm going to write in Mickey Mouse or something. Or I'm definitely going to blank her on the general election November 3rd. Absolutely no way am I going to be associated with voting for Amber Gibbons. All right, let's move on down to Houston. I'm going to get back to Dallas probably by the end of the show, but this is in Houston. I'm going to play a cut here. Brother Quinnell, who he is comedy gold here in Texas, and he's with his partner in crime. I can't think of her name now. The woman who wears the black cowboy hat, and she's a hot ticket too. Both of them funny. And they were at a Popeyes, I believe, in Houston, confronting the manager about a recent incident. And this is getting into PG-13 territory, so I doubt I have anybody under the age of 18 listening. But just in case, this cut is going to run about a minute. So here's Brother Quinnell now.
Hello?
Hello?
Is the manager here? Are you the manager?
Yes, sir. How can I help you?
We need to talk to you about a very serious situation.
Okay.
Extremely serious. This young man, where's my young brother? Tell me, young brother.
Okay.
This young brother was sitting here eating with also a member of his family not too long ago, this weekend. He broke open his chicken. He bought the chicken from here. He sat down in here, opened up the chicken, and the chicken had a condom in it. A condom. There's the video right there of them opening the chicken, and you can tell the condom was cooked in the chicken. If you look at the whole video, it was cooked in the chicken. When they came up here to speak to you all about it, they laughed at him. They thought it was funny.
Do you know what time I was? I was in
What time was it, young brother? It's on the receipt. Here's the receipt. Here's the receipt. Why the police were not called and notified that you have some freak in the kitchen? Because that was cooked in the chicken. So you got some freak in the back, in the kitchen, playing with himself and choking the chicken and stroking the chicken at the same time.
I tweeted that out if you want to see the whole video on X at RTR_Bronin. RTR_Bronin. That was just too funny. I always get a chuckle. I love to see the stuff that those two come up with. They are a hoot. Okay, speaking of freaks, James Tallarico, the Democrat candidate for the U.S. Senate here in Texas.
Every one of our neighbors with a uterus became the property of the state. One of our neighbors with a uterus to be
neighbors with a uterus. Talk about strange syntax. I love Brother Quinnell's syntax. Very funny, very engaging, quite relatable, unique. James Tallarico also has unique syntax. It happens to be extremely unrelatable, unengaging, perplexing, and I just don't think he's going to be able to win in Texas with his Harvard white Democrat male talking above your head, woke nonsense speech. Very bizarre. I just don't see it happening for him. But something I talked about in the last episode, Ken Paxton, the GOP challenger for the U.S. Senate, and the difference that I'm seeing, Tallarico, he's putting himself out in the line of fire, and he is allowing himself to be confronted with tough questions, and he is answering them, and he's getting practice for a potential debate situation. Right now, I don't know how a debate is going to, if we are going to get a debate between our two U.S. Senate candidates here in Texas. I certainly hope we do. I hope we get more than one. But Ken Paxton, as of right now, all of the evidence is pointing toward he is not ready for prime time. He is not ready to confront tough questions in an interview setting with a Democrat moderator, which you're going to get a panel of Democrat moderators. And during the summer, both camps, Paxton and Tallarico, they have charged each other with voter fraud. Now, James Tallarico, he's 36 or 37 years old. He's my age. He allegedly has a girlfriend now who I think is on his campaign. We don't see them on dates or holding hands or anyway. I don't think a lot of people are believing that he's got a girlfriend, which I think is going to be another problem with black voters. I'm just going to put it to you that way for James Tallarico. On the other hand, we know that Ken Paxton, he's got plenty of girlfriends. He's got no shortage of good-looking women, mistresses in his life, which, despite all of the Christianity, I think that's more forgivable in the eyes of many voters than living with your mother, listing your mother's address as a 36 or 37-year-old Harvard graduate member of the Texas legislature, which is the case with James Tallarico. And earlier this month, he was charged with essentially representing his Austin area district fraudulently, because before you can file to run for election in the state legislature here in Texas, you have to maintain residency in the district for at least 1 year. And very interesting. So Tallarico, he has been absolved of this potential scandal. It has been demonstrated that he does live with his mother in his district. And do you know when he moved into his mother's house? Or whom, I don't know if he was living there. I don't know. This is according to the San Antonio Current. Documents obtained by the Current show Tallarico changed the address on his voter registration documents and U.S. Postal Service address to the 50th District on November 5th, 2021, 368 days before the election. So it turns out he was a smart cookie after all. James Tallarico knew that he was going to be running for office, and he knew that his mother lived in a friendlier district for somebody who uses language like neighbors with uterus and supports all of the transgenderism agenda. And he knew that the Texas law said that you have to be living in the district for at least 1 year prior to running for office. So 1 year and 3 days before filing to run for office, James Tallarico moved into his mother's house, or at least registered his address as his mother's house. Whether or not he was living with her, I don't know. I do you think, I don't know if he's living with his alleged girlfriend, the campaign staffer. Do you think they're all living in mom's house, the Harvard graduate and his alleged girlfriend, who's running for the U.S. Senate, who's raised tens of millions of dollars, living with his mother? On the other hand, one of the questions that Ken Paxton is running away from is his alleged voter fraud. Allegedly, he has been voting, and this is according to the Texas Tribune, he's been voting in Collin County, where he was living with his soon-to-be ex-wife, Angela Paxton, for many years. And because of their divorce proceedings, they're separated. He hasn't been living with her. And the Texas Tribune says they aren't certain, they can't confirm where Ken Paxton has been living for the last couple of years, but they suspect, again, this is the Texas Tribune, reporting by ProPublica, and the Tribune has linked Paxton to a home in neighboring Denton County since February. Oh, Denton County, that's where Omar Narvaez, the former Dallas city councilor, likely future justice of the peace here in Dallas County, has listed an address, his domicile in Denton County. Very interesting. So Ken Paxton, however, he potentially has an issue because although he may have been living in Denton County, he continued to vote at his address in Collin County. I think while they are divorcing, his wife, State Senator Angela Paxton, has retained the home address. But Ken Paxton has voted in 6 elections at that same address and not in his potential current domicile in Denton County. And he doesn't want to answer any questions about that. And he has been asked about that, and he just shuts down the questions, or he has his spokeswoman step in and shut down the questioning. Just like he doesn't want to talk about his $7.5 million worth of real estate portfolio in multiple states, including Florida, including Hawaii, including Utah, including Texas. He's got property all around the state of Texas. Nice properties, and potentially in other states. And he doesn't want to talk about the fact that he doesn't have a debate on the calendar and that he's not very excited to challenge in a debate publicly James Tallarico, who's apparently the worst candidate that we've ever had on the Democrat ticket in the history of statewide politics in Texas. And he's weird. He's got all of these bad sound cuts, as I mentioned. And he's just fecund with woke BS. And Ken Paxton, he's not excited to get a chance to debate Tallarico. So in any case, I told you, I'm not bashing Ken Paxton. Any time that a Democrat has a question about where they're registering to vote and where they actually live, I talk about it. Or Omar Narvaez, I've come at him very hard for filing a lawsuit that was past the date of expiration, more beyond 2 years of the date of the incident. And he's now going to be a judge. In all likelihood, he's going to be a judge in Dallas County. He doesn't even know when the statute of limitations expires on filing a civil lawsuit in the state of Texas, and wasn't even living in Dallas County. Forget about his district in Dallas. Was living in Denton County, according to that lawsuit that was past the statute of limitations. He listed that he domiciled in Denton County. So I go after Democrats very hard. But Ken Paxton, he's hard to defend, isn't he? If you're being honest, in many ways. He cleared a host of scandals legally, securities fraud, obviously his impeachment trial in the Texas Senate. He cleared that. Other scandals, the mistresses. I don't care too much about that. Not my business. I know that he is a lawsuit machine. We love to see these lawsuits coming down on these woke cities. I appreciate that. But when you're the Attorney General of Texas and you publicly warn and caution would-be voters thinking about committing fraud in elections, and you as the Attorney General are responsible for investigating and enforcing any kind of fraudulent behavior in elections, then, I think it's important that your voter registration is up to date and accurate. And you should know this as a seasoned statewide politician with a national reputation and severe scrutiny already, and you're running for the U.S. Senate in what is probably going to be the most watched Senate race in the United States once we head into the fall. So I wanted to just mention that these are my thoughts on the U.S. Senate race. Okay, back to Dallas County. This is actually an infuriating story. I want to talk about the feckless, hapless, worthless group of empty suits, the Dallas County Commissioners and COVID Clay Jenkins.
Are we doing anything new with the pimps?
Yeah, you know what? I feel like you're the pimp, and I feel like COVID Clay Jenkins, and I feel like I'm the hooker being exploited as the taxpayer under your regime. Well, today is Friday, July 31st, if you're listening to the show on launch day. And I don't know, is it this morning or this afternoon? The Dallas County Commissioners, they are meeting. They have called a special meeting. Do you know when the Dallas County Commissioners typically meet? It's not Friday. No. Nobody in government is meeting on a Friday, especially the last Friday of July. They typically meet. Now, I don't think they usually typically meet in July at all, just like the Dallas City Council. But they meet every other Tuesday when they meet. So why then? Why the urgency of the Dallas County Commissioners on July 31st, a Friday no less, to call a special meeting? Oh, they're voting to give themselves a raise. They're voting to give themselves a raise. Can you believe that? They're calling it, they're not calling it a raise. They're calling it, COVID Clay Jenkins, a cost of living adjustment.
You ain't talking about me, guys. When it says county judge, you ain't talking about this county judge.
Yeah, we're talking about you. Unfortunately, we have to talk about you. You should be fired. Talk about another COVID era hack, PPP loan, fabulously wealthy lawyer who lives in Highland Park, who's been in the office for 15 years, who would have had COVID forever if he could have. And the voters of Dallas County, as listless as they are, continue to allow that freak to continue to go back into office year after year. So COVID Clay, he makes currently $219,652 per year. He wants to increase his salary by about $5,000, $224,594. Same thing with the county commissioners. They make just under $200K. They want to put themselves over $200K. County clerk, county treasurer, district clerk, tax assessor, justice of the peace, constable, district attorney, all getting a raise. They're all getting a raise. But you know what? The hacks, they're so considerate of us, the voters. Even they have to give themselves a cost of living adjustment because inflation, and it's we just have to do it. We're worth it. They do such a good job. Like with the homeless, one of their chief responsibilities is making sure that downtown Dallas and the rest of Dallas County isn't overrun with homeless, junkie bum, criminal, vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist reprobates. They've done such a good job on that front. They deserve a cost of living adjustment. After the cost of living adjustment that they gave themselves last year, by the way. But again, they're real fiscal stewards, these people. Oh, and they're probably going to be putting a bond before you in November if you're stupid enough to pass a bond to raise your property taxes again, because they just did that too, by the way. They are not going to increase their auto stipends, the county commissioners and Judge COVID Clay Jenkins. They're going to freeze their auto stipend for their monthly auto stipend for this year because they care about your tax dollars and they're good stewards of our money. You know how much you pay for wealthy attorney, Highland Park millionaire, ambulance chaser, TV advertising, COVID Clay Jenkins? Do you know how much you pay for his car every month? $775. And then the commissioners, you also pay them $775 a month. That works out to be over $46,000 per year you're paying for these people to go to work. Do you get paid to drive your car to work? Do you get a free DART pass to go to work? No, of course you don't. No, you get to pay for your commute. But these people are special. The sheriff also gets a stipend for the vehicle. The county clerk, the county treasurer, the district clerk, the tax assessor, the constable, the district attorney, they also get vehicle stipends. It works out to be, I don't know how many. See, some of these people, there are multiples. Like county commissioners, I happen to know there are 4 of them. Even though on the document that I tweeted out at RTR_Bronin, it doesn't say that there are 4. You need to figure that out for yourself. So, assuming that there are just 4 of them and everybody else on the list, judge, sheriff, clerk, treasurer, another clerk, tax assessor, constable, like there are a number of constables, I believe, all getting this stipend. It's like $100,000 a year, maybe more, in vehicle stipend. God, I had no idea that they were getting an auto stipend. I had no idea. I went on to the Dallas County Commissioner's website. I just wanted to see the next agenda. I didn't even believe they were meeting in July. And then I see a special July meeting on a Friday, last Friday of July. I knew before I opened the agenda, I don't mean to be crude, but I had the Vaseline out on my desk because I knew when I opened up that agenda, it was going to be painful. God, these worthless people, they are so worthless. You should watch a meeting. You're going to have to get toothpicks out to keep your eyelids open because they're so dull. The first hour, at least, of the meeting is celebrating every stupid day on the calendar. Pancake Day, Banana Day, Blue Sky Day, the grass is green day, Crazy Hat Day. Every retirement gets a celebration and a photo. Birthdays, Employee of the Month. That's what they do. That's what you're paying these people a cost of living adjustment for. And I think everybody else in Dallas County is going to be getting a raise. A cost of living adjustment too. All right. I think this is a good place to wrap up the show for today. Hope you have a great weekend. If you haven't already, please make sure, like, subscribe, follow, download the Real Texas Radio podcast from wherever you stream. Follow the show on X at RTR_Bronin. RTR_Bronin, and I will catch you on the next episode.